Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Coaching Space podcast with me, Justin Bodel, a space where I look at the people side of performance. My guest today is someone who I was really looking forward to interviewing, mental game and high performance coach Jody Martins. Jody has worked in the space for the last 10 years. He has specialized in working a lot with cricketers and has had the privilege of coaching some of the best junior provincial and senior provincial cricketers in the country, the likes of South African Proteas batsman Temba Bavuma. In today's episode, I chat to Jody about the mental side of the game, something that really fascinates me and I think is very applicable whether we are working in a sporting environment or not. To understand what the mental side of the game is all about, how what we think and what we feel impacts on our behavior, ultimately our performance. We chat about this idea of being in the zone or being in a state of flow, and Jody gives his view on what that actually looks like. We talk about some of the common pitfalls and the struggles, the mental errors that people make, and more importantly, what are some of the tools and techniques that people can apply to actually navigate those and to reach that state of flow and that state of focus that everyone is aiming for. And we end off with a little discussion around this idea of mindfulness, something that has become a really hot topic in the business world and in the sporting world as well, and how that applies to the mental side of the game. It was a real privilege to chat to Jody. He shares very openly. He gives a lot of really good and practical insights and tips, and I hope that you enjoy it. Cool. Well, good morning, Jody. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
No, it's my absolute pleasure and looking forward to our quick little chat here.
So listen, question number one, I suppose an obvious place to start. You work as a mental conditioning or mental strength coach. How do you personally define the work that you do in this space with individuals and teams?
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's a great question because I don't think it's always understood really. So happy to start the conversation there. For me, there's two parts of it, maybe three parts. The first part is that most athletes think that the mental game is sort of just the strategy side of their sport. And I think that is true because the strategy side is something that tends to happen on the inside. It is the awareness of the game. It is the thinking that they have around sort of playing the game.
Yeah.
And so often when I speak to athletes, it's like, do you have a mental coach? And they're like, no, my sports coach can take care of that for me. And then normally it's around that strategic side of the game, which is great. Sports coaches in my mind, yes, they qualified to take part of that side. That's not, to me, that's not really the mental game, even though it is an internal game that's being played.
Yeah.
So the mental game to me has got two parts. The first part is the side around the mental skills. So this would be typically the things around sort of an ability to be present, visualization or mental imagery, as it's sometimes called. I like referring to it as inner practice because it's sort of an ability to train on the inside.
Yeah.
It's maybe the skill of managing your state, managing your emotions. It's the skills of being present. So that's one side of it. Then there's completely the other side, which is the type of person you are and developing yourself really to a point where that affects your ability to perform better on the field. So they're more, and therein lies for me the softer side of the game. So things like that would be typical in that space would be around acceptance, permission, gratitude, an ability to authentically show up as yourself. And I think once we can, and there's more to it than that, but those things have a tendency to lead to more confidence, has a tendency to lead to being able to perform better at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And, you've obviously worked in this space for a number of years. I know you've kind of specialized in working with cricketers or sort of in particular. But have you seen players or coaches starting to show a greater appreciation for the mental side of the game? Have you noticed a shift at all, or do you still think it's a way off where it could be?
Yeah, and I think the short answer is no. Yeah. I've been involved in the cricket space for 25 years.
Sure.
And I would pretty much say, I think maybe more people are aware of it than they were, but engaging and really sort of saying, yes, I want to do this. I want to understand this a bit better. Most probably not a lot.
Wow.
I would be very interested in knowing if you go into like, say the South African environment and you ask those at that level, how many of you have got a sort of full-time person that you connect with on a regular basis that's busy helping you evolve yourself as a human being so that you can perform better? Very few of them would say yes.
Sure.
And I think there's a huge thing to be said for athletes being willing to invest in themselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's more so parents at times that seek me out than the actual athlete, because the parents wants the best for their child, and so they can sort of realize that, you know what, there's more potential in my child than maybe he's showing or she's showing out there on the field.
Yeah.
And I want the best for them, and so let's try and find somebody that can help with that, than an actual elite athlete saying, you know what, I know there's more in me. I can see that I'm averaging 40 at this point in time, but I believe I can average 50. How can I need people to help and support me with that?
How do I get there? And what do you think? What do you think a reason is behind that? You know, do you think there's still a bit of a stigma attached to this idea of kind of seeing a psychologist or a sports psychologist or a mental coach? Do you think it's a sign of weakness, or?
Yeah, I got to be careful with this answer. No, I got to be careful with this, because I think it's easy to step on people's toes, and I know. So I'm not a sports psychologist. I'm not qualified as a sports psychologist, and I know there's sports psychologists out there that aren't in the way that I'm going to answer this question. So I'm not talking about them. Sports psychology has a background in humans being broken and needing to be fixed. And so often they use sort of regression and past hurts and past experiences. And yes, there's times when that stuff has to be healed for an athlete. I'm not dispelling that. I'm not saying that there isn't value in that for one moment.
Yeah.
But the flip side is also true, that you don't always have to do that. A lot of people are healthy and functioning and standing on their own feet. And sort of the work I really do is helping those athletes that are sort of standing firm. It's not like the past hurts and things they haven't dealt with them and they can't sort of look to move forward in their lives.
Absolutely.
You know, that those are the people I work with. But I think the general public has this perception that all mental game stuff is based on that sort of having to fix, having to heal psychology. And then people avoid that. People tend to avoid that.
Yeah. No, fair. Yeah, fair points. So listen, when people hear about sports psychology, or they hear about mental coaches, or, you know, one of the phrases that often comes up is this idea of being in the zone, right? So we hear players, it's kind of sometimes this mystical state that they want to get into, or this idea of kind of being in a state of flow. What does that mean to you? How would you sort of define that that sort of state?
Yeah, look, I mean, well, isn't that what everybody wants?
Yeah.
want to be in that place. I mean, I know that cricketers, or maybe I've been in talks where elite cricketers speak, and they say they maybe were there once or twice in their life where they felt they could really control the game and everything just happened in the way that they wanted it.
Yes.
And I see more and more there's people out there sort of advertising that they can get you into a state of flow, you know, do these 1 or 2, 3 simple hacks or tips or tricks, and boom, you'll be there. So my personal understanding of it is that we can try and cultivate it on a daily basis. And some days we'll be in it a little bit more than others, but I think that real experience of like completely being in it, I don't know if that's something that you can sort of just access by a quick tip or a quick hack. I think there's so many components in the external environment and internal environment that have to be in place in order for an athlete to experience that.
I love how you said that, and it's such a good way of thinking about it, because I think, you know, what I've read and sort of learned about it is exactly that. It is this kind of knife edge balance between kind of being fully aware and almost becoming like part of the environment, and like you said, sort of assimilating all of those elements, but not so conscious that it actually, you know, stresses you out. It's like you're still kind of operating in a state of feel, you're not sort of becoming overly conscious about trying to control all of those elements, but it's like they're just hyper aware. Things almost happen in slow motion. Often a lot of players say that, they're not under any pressure. It's like they just know where things are going to be, how things are going to play out. So yeah, I love how you said that. It's exactly that. It's kind of trying to find that little balance between those two areas. And that's probably why it is such a difficult space to be in, because you can't just push a few buttons and you just switch that on, like you said, with an output of a number of elements.
Yeah, but like, I don't know who listens to your podcast, but if there are any athletes or coaches that are, or even parents that are listening in, the beauty for me of the mental game is that you can tweak, and this to me is the real mental game, is you can tweak a belief to create a different state, to deliver a different result. Yes. And so when we can say, okay, cool. So I understand that in order for me to be in flow, there needs to be sort of this, say at a very simplified level, those four things. So when I feel my ego get involved, or when I feel my sense of time sort of being connected with something, or when I feel like this is very effort, like I've got to put in a lot of effort, or I'm sort of completely low key, or I'm not really connected with this experience, what is it that I can tweak in my mental game? Or what is it that's interfering with me having that experience is maybe a better way to approach it. Yes. So, you know what, when I'm in this situation against this bowler, or when I'm standing on the rugby field and I'm facing that opposition, or when I'm on the track and I look next to me and there's these athletes next to me, and then this is the thing that interferes, and there will be something that pops up for the athlete to say, if I stand next to Usain Bolt, I think I haven't got a chance. And that thought, that one moment, yes, that's where you sort of lose your connectedness with experience. So if we can sort of go into that thought, understand it, unpack it, and get you to maybe say, you know what, it's just Usain Bolt. That's, I'm just here to run my race. I'm not yet to necessarily compete against the people against me, then chances are I can connect better with that experience than worrying about the people outside of me. And that's just like a very crude example of how that sort of a conversation could go with an athlete. It could be more involved. It could be even more simple for some.
I love that, Jody. No, I think that's such a practical example. And I love what you were saying. And it kind of touches on my next question, I suppose, is what are some of those common sort of mental errors or obstacles that you've seen in the players that you've worked with over the years? Are there kind of these common patterns or these sort of negative thoughts or obstacles that players struggle with?
There are some common ones. I don't know if I'm going to remember them all now. I would maybe talk about the one that's really relevant for me at this point in time.
Yeah, sure.
I think one of the biggest things athletes do is they outsource their game and they outsource their development. So they outsource their ability to perform and their development to coaches. And it's really with no disrespect to coaches. Yeah. But as a coach, as somebody who's coached cricket for 25 years and sort of more in the mental performance space at this point in time, I understand that an athlete goes to a coach to get better, and a coach is there to help support the athlete to become better. Mm. But if that relationship becomes skewed to the point where the athlete relies on the coach to make them better, rather than using the coach as a vehicle or a tool to sort of help them achieve what they want to achieve. Mm-hmm. Like the simplicity of that, of setting it up in that way, solves in my mind so many performance related issues. Sure. From a simple place where the athlete stands on a field and they go, this is not my grip, this is not really how I kick a ball, this is not how I want to play the game or how I want to express myself, but I do it because my coach sort of said that I had to do it in that way. Yes. From the simplicity of that and the mental sort of anguish that can cause an athlete, to maybe finer things like not backing themselves, not having the confidence, where that stuff translates down into other sort of performance related areas. To me, like right now, with the stuff that I'm sort of busy with a whole bunch of athletes, is that's at the heart of everything for me. So I'm a big believer in authenticity. I'm a big believer in every single person in this life playing what I call play your own game. So
love that.
my game is not your game, and we can be in a team and we can have a team goal, and I've got to express myself within that in my own unique way. And I think when we can tap into every single person's uniqueness and give them the ability to do that, self-belief increases, because now I'm not believing something you trying to sell me. I'm believing in me, and I know what I'm about. I'm about doing it in this way, and if I'm encouraged to do it in that way, then all of a sudden my confidence goes up and my belief goes up, and
Yes.
I start feeling better about myself. And I'm feeling better about myself, I can be a better teammate, and I can be better at my home. Like, the spill off of that one simple thing in my mind is huge.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, I mean, you're right, because I mean, these things really are so interconnected. And I love that point about players maybe needing to take that ownership, to take that accountability of your development. And like you said, good coaches are there to help you, whether it's on the mental side or the technical side, to teach you skills, to unlock new areas, to help you to kind of push and to navigate into a new space. But it's got to come from within.
And so I think if the training environment doesn't reflect that, then we're not building up the athlete to go out there and perform it on their own. Because as a coach, I'm not there to hold their hand and say, hey, remember this guy is going to do this now, or remember we got to look for that. That doesn't exist out there. They are the one, at the end of the day, when they lift their bat for 100, or when they kick the goal through the goal, or they put the ball through the post to win a World Cup final, or whatever it might be, they have to be able to do it. And I think our training environments don't reflect that. Athletes arrive at training relying on the coach to tell them what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, what intensity, what energy, what state they're going to be in, what mindset they're going to show up, what they're going to work on, what they need to improve.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And you are so right. Again, just that idea of sort of accountability, I suppose, and shifting into that space of realizing it's not just a wait for instruction. Like you said, you're not on the field with them. They can't outsource that part of their development. So what are some of the, there's obviously a lot of techniques and ideas in this space. What are some of the sort of the techniques or the practices that you really advocate, or that you found have worked well in helping athletes to take more ownership, to kind of counter some of that negative thinking, to get over mental blocks, reach that state of flow? What are some of the things that you like to use with your clients?
Yeah, personally, I'm a big believer in mindfulness. Big believer in that. And I think it's a topic that scares a lot of people, because they have the sort of thing, okay, I've got to meditate now, so I've got to cross my legs, put my hands in a way, become serene, maybe dress in a different way. But I like to keep it sort of a little bit more practical and say, you know what, the whole idea of mindfulness it's such a simple tool to meet a couple of criteria. Firstly, we often talk about control the controllables.
Yep.
Your breath is something you carry with you every single day, and it happens so automatically, it has to be there, but it's something that you can focus on in the moment, and it's something that you can control. So that's my first reason why I really like it, because it says, you know what, if I have to control something in a high performance environment, I can actually control my breath. I can't control the opposition. I can't control sort of how a ball comes at me. I can't control the ref. I can't control what my coach is busy thinking. I can't control the spectators. Now under COVID, there isn't a lot of them in any case. So I can't control that. But what I can control is my breath. So it's such an easy thing to just start practicing and start attaching to that. It can remind us of that. The next thing is that your whole interconnected mind-body system is all connected. And so under pressure, under stress, when we start experiencing the sweaty palms and the heart racing and that sort of fight flight mode kicks in, the easiest way to almost like reset that or get us back to a place where what I call like you switch your mind back on, because under pressure, fight flight mode, you cannot have that interconnected experience. Now it's an either or situation. I'm either doing this or I'm doing that. And which one is it going to be? Or I'm going to freeze. I'm going to stand still in the middle and not go anywhere and hope the lion doesn't see me, kind of thing, you know?
Yes.
And so what I like about breathing is that, and there's research on this. There's a phenomenal TED talk by a guy where he actually puts, I can't remember his name. He puts, maybe I'll send you the link and you can put it in the description below.
Yeah.
He physically attaches a person to like a heart rate monitor, and he shows how through just controlling your breathing, you can sort of stabilize your heart rate. And once your heart rate stabilizes, or your heart rate becomes in rhythm,
Yes.
see, under fight flight, your heart rate is erratic. So it sends the signal to your brain that there's a problem here.
Yeah.
If we can, through our breathing sort of find a rhythm, our heart rate becomes in a rhythm. It sends the signal to your mind that, you know what, everything's okay.
Yes.
And in a performance environment, you are not under the same type of pressure that you are facing a lion, like a real life or death sort of threat.
Yeah.
So if we can sort of, through our breathing, find the rhythm, send the signal to our mind that, you know what, everything here is okay, our minds can sort of switch on and say, okay, cool, I remember, I've got to go in this direction, I've got to focus on this, or I've got to execute that, or whatever it is that your strategy is then.
Yes.
So the easiest way I think that we can train this. So when I work with sort of young athletes that at school, I say, this isn't about you doing, like I said, this funny thing and becoming sort of a guru and becoming supremely spiritual.
Yeah.
This is really just, if you, let's say the first 3 periods every morning when you move between classrooms, what do? You're most probably on your phone, or you're chatting to a mate, or, you know, you're joking around, or you, whatever. Yeah. How about just from one classroom to the next classroom for the first 3 movements of your day, you just from there to there, you just focus on your breath. That's all you do. Yeah. It can literally be that simple. How about when you come up out of your bed and you put your feet on the ground every morning, you just say, right, for the next minute, I'm going to just focus. And maybe the better you get at it, then you can start extending that to say 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think just something as simple as that can allow us to, when we need it, because training a mental skill like that is like lifting a weight. It's like hitting your cover drive. It's like training the skill of kicking the ball in the way that you want to be kicking it.
Absolutely.
And so when you can do that on a regular basis, on a daily basis, when you're in the heat of battle and you switch that on, now your mind is used to it, your body is used to it, boom, it'll most probably have a huge effect. Not most probably, the evidence is there that it'll have a huge effect on your ability to just get back into controlling the controllables, like resetting your mind, knowing where you want to go.
And I mean, so at the beginning, you spoke about this idea of kind of visualization. Is that, have you worked at all a bit with that? Have you found, you know, sort of pre the game, and cricket as well, I'm thinking if you're not fielding and you're kind of waiting to bat, you can sometimes be sitting for a long period of time. How do you sort of stay already kind of prepare mentally for what it's going to be like on the field? Is something like visualization, have you found that to be useful with any of your clients?
Yeah, definitely. So I've got a couple of clients that they say it doesn't work for them, to be honest. And I think that's a lot of people's response. Then so the starting point of that would normally be, well, let's see what you can visualize. Tell me about your bedroom. Like, where's your bed? Where's your cupboard? If you open your cupboard, like, how is it structured inside there? Where's your clothes? You know? So we can start, if you really find, start visualizing simple things. And it's a mental skill. Just like you have skills in your sport, and some of them as an athlete you couldn't do when you were younger, and now you can, and you put in the work with it, and you put in the training with it. And yes, now you, as an elite athlete, or somebody that's, maybe it's not elite, maybe it's just somebody that's in high school that's listening in, and so now you've got some skill, but you still have to work at it. And so it's the same with visualization. It's the same with the breathing. It's the same with all these things that, yes, if you're going to do it sporadically, and yes, if you're going to do just a little bit, or yes, if you're not going to back it, you won't develop it, and then it won't benefit you. But if you start working at it, and you start failing at it and making the mistakes and learning at it, then a couple of years down the line, all of a sudden you are a brilliant visualizer. And then I believe you will see the benefit from that in your performance.
Absolutely.
So and then maybe just, some other advice I would give with that, or tips I would give with that is, so when we visualize, it can have different purposes. So a lot of people will say, visualize the past. So yes, visualize the past. That's great. but understand the purpose of that. The past visualizations for me would be, especially if you're visualizing past successes, that would be for that sort of feeling of confidence. Like, oh yeah, I've done this before. Okay, I can trust a little bit more, yeah, because been there, done that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When we visualize the future, like what I want, what my dreams are, that's for motivation, energy, motivational sort of energy, like inspiration, like, yeah, I got this. So if we're low on energy, pick up like some visualization, like, oh yeah, remember, I want to achieve this. I want to have that. And the more we do that, the more we can start kickstarting that sort of, okay, yeah, cool. I'm feeling inspired. I'm energized. Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, the most important visualization you can learn to do is the visualization of the actual performance.
Okay. Great.
And within that, it's not just the perfection of the performance, but the sort of stumbling of the performance as well. So I walk out to bat, I face my first ball, I play and miss at it. I feel under the pump a little bit. I'm kicking in my breathing. I feel like how my body settles into that. I walk into the crease again. I feel ready to face the next ball. I know that for me, I really just try and focus in on the ball, or I watch a general area where I know I'm going to see the ball from. And so you're not just visualizing, oh yeah, I hit that beautiful shot through the covers for 4. You also visualizing the process that gets you there. And you visualizing yourself when sort of, oh shucks, this bowler comes on and I'm really struggling against him. How do I step out of my crease? Give myself a moment to breathe. How do I formulate that plan? How do I step back into the crease and execute it? So it's not just, and then you can, yes, definitely add in all the niceties of like, yeah, I whipped that off my legs and I hit it for 4. And, like I win the game, and all these great things, so.
I think that's such a great piece of advice, Jody. Exactly that. And it kind of keeps that focus, like you said, on the process itself and on your processes and on the things that you can control, and actually visualizing, almost helping your body to get there and almost experience it, and to start setting your mind and your body into that idea of, this is actually what I'm going there to do. Like you said, hitting the 4 and all of those things are almost the outcome of it. But if my feet are in the right place, or it's going to be hard for me to execute that shot. So that kind of visualization of actually being in the moment and executing the tasks, almost experiencing that before you go out and do it. I think it's a great primer which is really cool. I also love what you're saying, just that, and I think it's such a good point as well, that not, all of these techniques, all these different ideas, not everything will work for everybody. And that's also okay. And that's kind of what the great thing is about also maybe experimenting and trying. And, for someone, something like the visualization might be, a perfect fit and they love it. Like you said, maybe for someone else, not as much, but there'll be something else that they respond to. Maybe it's trigger words or routine, or it's whatever that really resonates with them. So I love that idea as well. And that's, like you said, when people take ownership, if they start exploring and reading and practicing, that's the only way they're going to figure out what works for them, so
100%. So I think in the conversation earlier, I spoke a little bit about tips and tricks and hacks and those sort of things. I'm very careful of those things. Yes, there could be tips, tricks, and hacks. They could definitely exist.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for each athlete to find out what those are for them. You might listen to what works for Steve Smith, or what works for, I don't know, whoever in whatever your sport is, and you read that and you go, okay, because this works for them, it will work for me.
Yeah.
And so I think what you say, and based on having to maybe read and research and try and fail and figure it out, to go, now I've got my formula. Now I've got the formula to my performance. I know how I am going to do this, but I have taken the time to experiment a little bit with the visualization stuff. I have taken the time to experiment with that breathing stuff. Maybe there's affirmations, or I do my self-talk, or I'm really just a music guy. I put music on my ear and I sort of get into this flow with that. So I've got to make sure my phone's always charged. There's so many avenues and so many pathways into this. Yes. Some people need a concoction of all this stuff. They need a bit of listening to. I mean, I listened to a podcast the other day, and this girl was speaking about, she's an Olympic. I think she does like the decathlon, but they spoke a lot around her long jump.
Wow.
And she spoke about how she listens to different types of music at different times leading up to her events, like driving to the stadium. She listens to like really chilled out, like jazzy type music, because that like I would never listen to jazz. It like irritates me, but for her, it sort of mellows her out.
Yeah.
Then when she gets into like her warm-up phase, where she can still have sort of her earphones on or whatever technology she uses, she like listens to very aggressive music because she wants to amp up her state and get sort of like really psyched up.
Yeah.
And then when they go into like the area just before they step out onto the track, they're not allowed any technology in there. There she kicks in her breathing and she really starts to focus on that. And so it's also it's sort of learning how, so she had to learn how she uses different things around the mental game at different times.
Yes, I love that. And I think it's a great point to end on. I love what you were saying there. It's about athletes finding their formula. You know, what is that formula that works for you? We know that this can make a difference. And I think if athletes are willing to step into that space, even just to gain greater awareness of the connection between what they think and what they feel and how that impacts on their performance, I think, I really think there's a world of possibilities there for players to, like you said, not only kind of level up their performance, but just their kind of who they are as people as well. Okay?
Yeah. My last thought on that is, so yes, we've been talking for a large part about athletes, but I think this is so true for every human being. So if you're in a corporate environment or you're running your own business, having your own routines, your own visualizations, focusing on your breathing maybe, and having all of these things in place for every human being to a certain, and having their own formula for their own success to make them be the best of what they can be in their environment, I think that's super important.
Absolutely. Jody, thank you so much for your time this morning. I really, really appreciate it. Listen, if people want to get hold of you, or they want to follow you, or check out some of the stuff that you do, how can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Clubhouse. I'm not a lot on Twitter, but I have a Twitter account. I would say those would be the best sort of ways. Facebook too. All of them are at Real Jody Martins. Okay. And I only use that name because I couldn't fit in the name that I wanted on all the different platforms with what they allow in terms of characters. So that's the one that fits everywhere. That's the one that fits everywhere. But just at Real Jody Martins, they can find me.
Okay, brilliant. I'll put all the links and stuff there as well. Jody, listen, thank you so much for your time. It was so cool to talk about. Like I said, just such a critical part of our life and our success and our performance. Like you said, whether you're an athlete or whether you're in the business world or just as people in general, just to understand the importance of the mental game, I think is so crucial. So thank you for sharing your knowledge, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, perfect.
Cool. Pleasure, man. Cheers. Bye.